This is VOA Africa.
Good evening, I'm Esther Githuiyuat. It's Monday, June 17th. This is Africa 54.
Ugandan health officials and the World Health Organization mobilized to stop the spread of Ebola. Former Sudanese President Omar al-Bashir is charged with corruption, appearing in public for the first time since he was ousted from power. And the American Football Academy nurtures Africa's young, rising talents.
Ugandan health officials and the World Health Organization are mobilizing medical professionals in the fight against Ebola due to its spreading across the border from the deadly outbreak in the Democratic Republic of Congo. Frontline workers are risking their lives to stop the dreaded virus, which has already killed 1,400 people in the DRC and 2 in Uganda. Halima Thumani reports from Western Uganda.
Ugandan health worker Masereka Robinson makes daily visits on foot to educate families in Chisinga sub-county about Ebola, including the family that brought the deadly virus into Uganda. The family's visit to an infected relative in the neighboring Democratic Republic of Congo cost them a child and a grandmother. Ugandan health workers are vaccinating those who come in contact with Ebola, including themselves, with the help of the World Health Organization.
Now, with the outbreak, we are again giving the vaccine to health workers, especially those who might have missed last time. So we're giving them the vaccine, and any other frontline health worker, not necessarily a medical worker, but anybody involved in Ebola work. For instance, people at screening at the border, the Red Cross volunteers, the village health teams.
Uganda has vaccinated close to 5,000 health workers, but while hospitals, testing and treatment centers are prepared to fight Ebola, Robinson says at the village level they lack needed medical supplies.
And at the facility, of course, there's no gloves, we have no masks to make sure that also we are protected.
Geoffrey Mbusa is the village health team coordinator at Kagando Parish. He says they are working overtime to try to control movement of villagers suspected of having contact with Ebola in an already scared community along the border.
You should monitor your life in one position. You should not have the necessary movements of either visiting other people. And at the moment, we've told them that even other relatives of theirs, they should not be coming to visit them till the 21 days when we shall say, at least you are now safe.
Health workers set up an isolation unit at Wera Hospital where 2 nurses who came in contact with the infected family are being monitored. Just across the border, health workers in the DRC are battling the second worst Ebola outbreak on record, which has infected more than 2,000 people, killing 2/3 of patients. Health workers in Uganda hope the vaccinations and stepped-up screening efforts will be enough to prevent the virus from spreading any further. Halima Thumani for VOA News, Kasese, Uganda.
A triple suicide bombing attack in Nigeria's northeastern state of Borno has killed at least 30 people and wounded over 40, according to state emergency officials. Sunday's 8 p.m. local time attack is the biggest mass killing this year by suicide bombers. So far, no group has claimed responsibility for the attack. The head of the village of Kanduga, Bulama Kali, says 3 suicide bombers had participated in the attack, targeting a place where villagers gathered to watch a football match on a large screen. Kali says most of those killed have now been buried, while several survivors remain in a Maiduguri hospital. The Boko Haram terrorist group and its Islamic State splinter group have often carried out attacks targeting civilians and the military in Borno State. Violent ethnic clashes in northeastern Democratic Republic of Congo between farming and herding communities have killed at least 161 people in the past week. A series of attacks in Ituri province has mostly targeted Hema herders who have long been in conflict with Lendu farmers over grazing rights and political representation. A Congolese lawmaker from Ituri province, Pascal Karokaki Bagoma, says the latest violence was sparked by the killing a week ago of 4 Lendu business people. At least 10 people are dead in Somalia and another 23 wounded stemming from a car bomb explosion that ripped through a busy street in Mogadishu, according to witnesses and medical services. The car bomb was triggered and exploded on Saturday on the busy Makal Mukarama road, close to Parliament, as security forces tried to stop and check it. 7 people died at the scene, and hospitals confirmed that at least 3 others later died from their wounds. Surrounding buildings were severely damaged or destroyed by the blast. The Al-Shabaab terrorist group immediately claimed responsibility for the attack. The extremist group has been fighting for more than a decade to topple the government. Cameroonian government officials say that separatists in the English-speaking region detonated an improvised explosive device late Saturday that killed 4 police and wounded 6. There was no immediate claim of responsibility from any separatist group. It is rare but not unheard of for the separatists to use bomb technology, but this would mark their first deadly strike using a bomb. The attack came after both sides claimed to be open to dialogue. The English-speaking northwest and southwest of the country complain of being marginalized by the French-speaking majority and want to secede. Prime Minister Joseph Ngute says the government is willing to talk to the rebels, but it would not consider their demand for secession. Sudan's former leader, Omar al-Bashir, is being charged with corruption. He appeared in public on Sunday for the first time since his ouster in April. Pascal Davis reports.
This is the first public sighting of Sudan's ex-president since he was toppled 2 months ago. On Sunday, Omar al-Bashir was driven to a prosecutor's office in Khartoum, surrounded by security, where he was charged with corruption-related offences. The long-standing ex-leader has been in prison since April 11th, after the military overthrew him following 16 weeks of protest against his 3-decade rule. The military council since set up a transitional council and began talks with an alliance of protest and opposition groups. However, discussions over who would lead a 3-year transition of power have stalled. That after security forces crushed a protest on June 3rd, which left more than 100 people dead. People have since continued to protest in request of a civilian rule. On Friday, the top US diplomat for Africa said outside mediation is needed to defuse the crisis, as the ruling military council and opposition distrust each other too deeply for direct talks.
Pascal Davis of Reuters with that report. This breaking news just in to Africa 54. Egyptian state television and various media outlets are reporting that a short time ago, ousted former Egyptian President Mohamed Morsi collapsed and died during a court session. State television says the 67-year-old Morsi was attending a trial session on espionage charges when he blacked out and then died. Morsi, who hailed from Egypt's largest Islamist group, the outlawed Muslim Brotherhood, was elected president in 2012 in the country's first free elections. The military sacked Morsi in 2013 after massive protests and crushed the Brotherhood in a major crackdown. Thousands of people took to the streets on Sunday in Haiti's capital, Port-au-Prince, as well as Le Cayenne in the south and Cape Haitian in the north, to continue demanding the resignation of President Jovenel Moïse. Petro Challenger activists teamed up with various grassroots groups across cities to reiterate their message to government officials accused of corruption. President Moïse is accused of fraudulently benefiting from funds generated by the Petro-Caribe Oil Alliance with Venezuela. The allegations were made in an official report handed to Haiti's Senate on May 31st. The $3.8 billion in oil revenue that went missing had been earmarked for infrastructure projects, education, and social programs. In a national speech on June 12, the president rejected allegations his companies misused funds from the Petro-Caribe Oil Alliance and reiterated that he would not resign. Hong Kong democracy activist Joshua Wong joined those calling for the resignation of the city's pro-Beijing leader to resign, saying after his release from prison Monday that he would soon join massive protests against an extradition law. Wong was one of the leaders of the 2014 Umbrella Movement and had spent 2 months in prison on charges related to those protests. Hong Kong authorities reopened roads Monday near government headquarters after hundreds of thousands of protesters clad in black marched Sunday against the controversial bill that would allow for extradition to China. The protest brought major parts of Hong Kong's shopping and government districts to a standstill as organizers said 2 million people demonstrated in the streets. The protests came the day after the bill was suspended by Chief Executive Carrie Lam, but the protesters say they will continue until the bill is permanently revoked. Meanwhile, U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo says President Donald Trump plans to discuss the Hong Kong issue with his Chinese counterpart Xi Jinping at the upcoming G20 summit. The U.S. Senate this week is expected to mount an effort to block an $8 billion arms sale to Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates as many American lawmakers continue to fume over Riyadh's human rights record, the war in Yemen, and last year's murder of journalist Jamal Khashoggi. Here's VOA's Michael Bowman.
If you look in terms of dollars, $3 billion, $533 million.
Passions over Saudi Arabia run high in the U.S. Senate.
The current relationship with Saudi Arabia is not working for America. I'm never going to let this go until things change in Saudi Arabia.
What kind of ally kidnaps a resident of your country who is seeking our protection, brings him into a consulate, chops him up, and makes him disappear? The nature of this alliance has been exposed.
The results are 56 yeas and 41 nays.
Months after the Senate narrowly approved a resolution to end U.S. support for the Saudi-led air campaign in Yemen's bloody civil war, the chamber could vote against pending sales of U.S. bombs, guided munitions, and military support to Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates. The Trump administration's attempt to fast-track the arms deal under an emergency declaration irks lawmakers of both parties.
I'm glad to know I'm not the only one in this body disturbed by the president's willingness to bypass Congress and sell this weaponry without any consideration of the recent events that have strained our relationship with Saudi Arabia.
While simple majorities are believed to exist to pass resolutions of disapproval, it is doubtful that two-thirds supermajorities could be mustered to override likely presidential vetoes of the resolutions. Last week, the Senate declined to consider an effort to block arms sales to Bahrain and Qatar. Floor debate demonstrated that arms sales to the Middle East remain popular among significant numbers of Republicans, especially given a spate of troubling incidents in the Persian Gulf region.
As Iran's economy staggers under the weight of new American sanctions, the Ayatollahs are lashing out and raging against the world. It's essential we support our Gulf partners during this dangerous time so they can defend themselves from Iranian aggression.
Other Republicans argued that withholding arms sales will only serve to compel long-standing allies to purchase weaponry from America's adversaries. Michael Bowman, VOA News, Washington.
We're excited to hear what you think about Africa 54. Join the discussion on Facebook. The address is Africa 54. We are also streaming our broadcast live on Facebook. Please watch and share our show with your friends. Also check out our headlines 24/7 on voaafrica.com. Still to come, the American Academy nurturing the continent's next football superstars. We'll be right back.
I am Sheikha Sali, host and senior editor of VOA's international call-in talk show, Straight Talk Africa.
Today we'll examine the tobacco industry.
We pretty much touch on anything that you can think of. Politics, health issues, human rights issues, you name it, we talk about it. The issues that we discuss are pertinent to most people on the African continent. A very, very rare and unique opportunity to interact with their leaders.
The lyrics could be French,
English,
Portuguese,
Bantu,
Arabic.
It is the beat.
The African beat that counts.
The beat does all the translations.
It cuts across all languages and gives us the understanding that this is the African beat.
It is so distinct
and adhesive.
It binds us together.
African Beat on the Voice of America. For more information, visit our website at www.voanews.com/AfricanBeat.
I'm Clara Frank, and here's what's trending. It's Game On in Los Angeles. Competitors battled on popular Nintendo titles as part of the Japanese video game company's 2019 World Championship Tournament. Players from North America, Europe, Japan, and Australia fought to take home the top prize on the cartoon-style shooter Splatoon 2. Gamers don't argue they're athletes, but say they share the same drive to compete. Some gamers have hopes that esports will be included in the 2024 Olympics, which is set to be held in Paris. The International Olympic Committee has already included skateboarding, surfing, and sports climbing into the schedule for the 2020 Tokyo Olympics, hoping to draw a younger fan base. Next up, these young migrants to Australia are learning technical skills at the State Library of Queensland. It's a fresh take on electronic waste, making the most of a stack of old government computers, otherwise destined for landfills. The workshop is run by one of its original trainees, Tamenya Gonzaga, who moved to Australia from Uganda. Many students come from the Democratic Republic of Congo, Syria, Kenya, and Rwanda. So far, about 100 students have been through the program, learning to tackle the ins and outs of computer hardware, software, and operating systems. And finally, the International Tokyo Toy Show is showcasing a host of new toys aimed at teaching children how to code. Mattel's Fisher-Price brand showed off a toy aimed at 3 to 6-year-olds called the Code-A-Pillar. The toy lets children program its movements through special dials located on each segment of the toy caterpillar. Sony Entertainment Interactive has also released their version of a coding toy known as Toyo. A small square robot is equipped with a camera on the bottom that can read various square codes out of an accompanying book, much the same way a cell phone camera can read QR codes. And that's what's trending today.
The European Space Agency is using satellite imagery to document the status of ice flows around the world from Greenland to Antarctica. The images illustrate just how quickly the world's ice is turning into water. VOA's Kevin Ennox has more.
The frozen water parts of the planet have a name, the cryosphere. And for the past few decades, the European Space Agency has been using satellites like Sentinels-2 and 3 to gauge the status of the cryosphere. The news isn't good.
The last century, we've seen quite dramatic changes in these different elements of the cryosphere. Notably, we've seen significant losses in Arctic sea ice. We've seen decline in the volume of ice locked up in glaciers. And we've also been witnessing changes in the large ice sheets, Greenland and Antarctica. The consequence, of course, is that sea level is rising as water is transferred from ice on land into the ocean.
The red parts of this image show ice loss in Greenland. This is the Brunt Ice Shelf in Antarctica. And this imagery shows the retreat of the Columbia Glacier in Alaska. The disappearance of the cryosphere has all kinds of implications for humanity.
Glaciers have a huge impact on the population on Earth, particularly in Southeast Asia, where millions of people are dependent on mountain water resources.
And a recent study suggests Earth's glaciers are losing 369 billion tons of snow and ice annually.
During the summer season, we see the melting of the glacier and the mountain snowpack. This, of course, releases water, which is used for irrigation in the fields. It's used for generating hydroelectric power, and it's also used for drinking water. And so we're very much concerned with how climate warming has an impact on the seasonal stream flow and the way in which the water resource can be managed in the future.
During the past 50 years, the same study found that the world has lost 9.6 trillion metric tons of its icy covering. And as the ice melts, it reflects less of the sun's heat, which can lead to a runaway melting process. Scientists hope these images could help educate politicians who are drafting policies to fight climate change. Kevin Enochs, VOA News.
In Women's World Cup soccer, veteran striker Carly Lloyd scored twice as the United States beat Chile 3-0 on Sunday. Those goals sent the Americans into final 16 teams. Lloyd became the first player to score in 6 consecutive World Cup matches. The United States plays Sweden next to decide top spot in Group F. South Africa's Banyana plays Germany in Group B Monday, while Nigeria plays a crucial match against France Monday. After a 3-0 loss to Norway in their opening match, that result means the Super Falcons still stand a chance of making it out of their group at a World Cup for the first time in 20 years. A professional soccer team here in the United States is copying European clubs by sponsoring and training academy that includes some of Africa's best young players. VOA's Thierry Kaore joined those players on the pitch outside of Philadelphia.
U.S. Major League Soccer's Philadelphia Union sponsors more than 80 young footballers here at its training academy in Pennsylvania. Owner Richie Graham says African players are an important part of the academy's international mix.
We have a number of boys coming from West Africa who have come to the school, and with what they bring to the community is magical. These boys who have come from other parts of the world have brought a part of that piece of the world with them here and helped make this a very, very special place. And we take that sort of culture piece very, very seriously because we believe to develop world-class players, you have to develop a world-class person.
There are boys from more than 40 nations here, all of whom Graham says share the dream of becoming professional footballers. Abubakar Kamara joined the academy from Guinea in 2012.
I think the coaches are great because they will help you whatever you need. They will give you time before practice and after practice, and you can always talk to them when you need it. You can go over video anytime you want to.
The Training Academy also sponsors academic classes, offering students a variety of courses. Patrick Bowie came from Guinea in 2016.
Out here we have everything. It's not like other school that you alone, you do whatever you do by yourself, but here it's like a family. Everybody's there for you whenever you need help. So I'm really happy and glad to be here.
All we're looking for are those reactions though, right? So when we turn it over...
Academy coach Kevin Coleman says Africans at the academy raise the level of play.
Patrick and Abubakar are great additions. You know, they're obviously younger as well, so it's great to see them fit in with the older group, but also, you know, boys that fit the profile, you know, the hard work, the explosiveness, but then also their soccer and their ability to play under pressure. So.
Academy director Tommy Wilson is from Scotland and says instructors are here mindful of the needs of players who are far from home.
As an immigrant myself, I know the challenges in coming to another country. Immigrating can be quite overwhelming. But what I would say is that this school provides an outstanding opportunity, a life-changing opportunity.
Cecilia Gil helps look out for immigrant players who live in the academy housing.
It's more than just a job. You become like their second mom, like their mom away from home. It's a new adventure every day. You get to know them personally, and I enjoy doing this.
Marcos Blas joined the program from Ivory Coast in 2015. Now he's going to university.
I feel like I'm surrounded around brothers. So it's like a brotherhood and family, so everything put together. You cannot really find this type of environment everywhere. So I'm like blessed to be here.
The Philadelphia Union Club offers developmental contracts to some of the players, all of whom remain eligible to play for their country's national teams. Thierry Kaore for VOA News, Wayne, Pennsylvania.
Muhammad Ali amazed the world as a champion boxer and political activist. After passing away in 2016, Ali's hometown of Louisville, Kentucky, memorialized him by officially naming its airport after him on June 6th. The move also highlights one of Ali's most famous quotes. VOA's Alam Burhanan reports.
No fight. Never worry about fights.
What do you worry about?
Nothing really. Only bad airplane flights. No fights.
People say Muhammad Ali feared no boxer, but he did fear something else.
And I think about the plane splitting and the long fall, and I say, why did I have to rush? I could have took a bus. Oh, Lord, if you just let me off of here, I'll take a train the next time.
His fear of plane travel was well known.
He was afraid to fly, so, you know, that's just one of those things. Something he feared. It wasn't another man in the ring, I can tell you that.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Louisville, Kentucky.
Ironically, Ali's name is now a part of the aviation world.
So we thought it would be a fitting statement for us as a city to put, you know, an exclamation point with his name that, okay, Muhammad, now we're naming the airport after you. It's time for you to get over your fear of flying.
In January, the Louisville Regional Airport Authority Board voted to rename its international airport after the hometown legend.
A committee was formed. They met multiple times over the course of about a year and a half. And as they were going through these meetings, it really became apparent that the recognition of Muhammad Ali, the fact that he's from Louisville, that it made a lot of sense that this should be the Louisville Muhammad Ali International Airport.
Ali was also known as an outspoken activist who converted to Islam and was convicted of draft evasion for refusing to be inducted into the Army during the Vietnam War. The president of the Muhammad Ali Center says he hopes naming the airport after Ali will highlight his legacy.
So we want to make sure that the general public has a great understanding of why the airport was renamed and the importance that it represents to the Muhammad Ali Center, the family, the nation, and the world.
Ali was born and raised in Louisville and was buried here in 2016. This Kentucky city is still celebrating the man who became a global icon. Alam Burhanan, VOA News, Louisville, Kentucky.
And that's our show for today. From everyone here in Washington, have a good evening.